Welcome everyone. Today's video is going to cover the Daiwa SS AIR TW. This is going to be in a lake setting where I'm going to be skipping docks, pitching into some reeds and such to test out what this reel is designed for, that short to mid-range cover bass fishing. So if you want to see that, keep watching. Also comment down below what BFS gear that you've been using lately. One of the things I really haven't been enjoying about this reel is the ability that I can go from like pitching mode to skipping mode to casting without adjusting my brakes. Now, sometimes I will adjust, especially if I have something a little bit lighter on, I'll have to adjust a couple notches. But I've been generally around setting 12, and I've been doing really, how would I put that? It's made me pretty efficient because I can go through and just go boom, boom, boom. I can hit 3 different types of cover with 3 different types of casts without having to adjust my brakes. Sometimes when you're sitting there having to adjust your brakes, especially if a fish blows up, or you got hit right at the end of the dock and like the fish went back underneath the dock and you want to get back in there, you're gonna forget to adjust your brakes and you can blow your spool up. Now granted, this spool is not very deep, so if you're gonna be running say 10-pound or even 12-pound fluorocarbon, which is most BFS people will be like, oh, that's too heavy. Well, it's about ripping fish out of this cover, so it's not a really dainty type reel, which I did go trout fishing with it. So it does work for trout fishing. I have a deliberate video on that. I'm not going to talk about that here. So you're still doing a finesse technique, but it's just a little bit bigger bait. So you're actually going to be like real bass fishing, if you want to call it that. And something with skipping is I use my rod tip. So as I come down next to the, this isn't going to be a deliberate video on this, but I come down close to the water and I always raise my rod tip up to keep that line, that lure planed on the surface, but also keeps my loose line up, so because you're going to have a little bit of loose line. That way I can pull it out before it becomes a backlash. Yeah, I just keep semi-slack line like this, so that way it drops straight down. If you skip under a dock and then you have tight line, that bait's gonna come swinging back toward you, and you're not gonna be fishing underneath. Say you get a really good skip in the back of a dock or a boat or something like that, you're not going to be fishing that same area. That bait's just gonna come out toward you, and you're fishing where everybody else is fishing. The overall retrieve, I've caught many fish. Just, you know, my drag's basically been locked down on this reel the whole time, and I've caught many fish underneath docks, just reefing them in, and the retrieve's still smooth. I haven't had any sort of issues with, you know, the geariness, especially you'd think being aluminum gears and being a more finesse-oriented reel. But I think Daiwa knew that it was going to be not, you know, like a dainty little BFS reel. They were actually going to be putting it to some cover. Like here, like I went from like doing some like backhand casts that were pretty effortless without touching my brake dial. Let's go right into skipping, which it should be good. There's some 6 feet here. There's some grass underneath that dock. No boats. There we go. I had a double take on that one. It's not a big fish, but yeah, that was a weird fish. I thought I hit ooh, come on. Oh, that's a plier fish for sure. But I thought I hit some grass. I felt my line bump again, so I had to do a double take on that. Yeah, it's not a bad fish. It's smaller for this lake, but a little beat up too. All right, I'm gonna get that thing back. Yeah, that came, I don't know where the fish originated from, but he hit outside the dock. Hopefully I can get something. But like I was saying, I've had the drag locked down. I've been just reefing fish out from docks and boats and stuff, and the retrieve's still been fine. I have tested the drag out a little bit when I'm, you know, it was a little more open water to see how it is, and it's smooth. It's it's not an attribute for the reel that I would really care to look for, because my drag's gonna be locked down the whole time anyway, but it has been smooth. So if you're gonna be using, like, you know, Ned rigs in open water or whatever, it's been just fine for that. All right, so another area where the SS AIR TW was designed for is pitching around cover. Now granted, this isn't like, you know, big tree cover, but these reeds are often overlooked, and they do hold fish, and that is somewhere that you're going to be, whether you're pitching, it's going to be a good combination of pitching and casting. So these are areas that would really test the braking system. Now I'll work the outside edges first, just in case there's fish here. It is some overcast, so the fish won't be super tight in there. And I'll work the outsides kind of quick because it's not as thick. Make sure my bait is 100% weedless. There we go. See if we're going from pitching to short range casting. There we go. Oh, that's a nice one. Come on, come on, that's a nice fish. Yeah, so that was, like I said, the pitching to casting is nice, and also that power. I mean, I don't think I've ever had the drag slip. Now, I'm not punching with it. I'm gonna let that fish go here. I'm not punching with it, so I'm not getting that super strong testing with the brakes. But those areas, like I said, with the reeds, they're often overlooked big time, especially when it's sunny out. They don't provide much cover, but there's something, especially after the bass have spawned. They're chasing a lot of small bluegill, which is pretty much what's happening now. And those small bluegill love these areas right here. So I'm gonna get back in there, see if I can get another one. And this time I'm gonna try to go a little bit further back. And with that, having that line control, so if you have a reel that's gonna be pushing out a lot of line when you're trying to get your lure somewhere, all that slack line, especially in these reeds, if you have slack line out, you're gonna be just asking for trouble, because when that fish hits your lure, especially if you have it, I have a pretty much weightless here, so it kind of just glides down in those reeds, and then when the fish grabs it and you have loose line, they could tie you up real quick. So that's why I like the very flat trajectory, which is something that a lot of people overlook with a reel, but even having that flat trajectory like that, that's gonna keep a lot more direct contact with the line, especially using a little bit more finesse tackle. It's gonna increase your odds of landing that fish big time. And having a fast reel too, that's something I should mention, is having a faster gear ratio is gonna help, which this reel only comes in the 8.5 gear ratio. Again, because it's designed for this type of fishing, that like close cover plastic, so you're not gonna have the need for that slower gear ratio at all. And my brake settings are generally between, I don't know, 14 and 10, I'd say most times. And the brake dial it's right here on the side, and it's a little bit weird to adjust at first, but for me, I've been able to just, on the side of my thumb like this, just, and it's been nice for me, the brake adjustments, because it's already right there, and what I'm doing is just fine tuning my brakes. I could get away with one setting for skipping, pitching, longer casting, shorter casting, whatever, and be fine. But sometimes, and depending on, ooh, there's some whole school of bluegill chasing my baits. Depending on what lure I'm using or what I'm trying to do, I might do a couple adjustments, but it's not like a lot of reels, especially like your Shimano with the SVS Infinity brake system, where you almost have to set the brakes to pitching, reset the brakes to casting, and then reset them to like skipping, which if you're working close cover, like say docks or whatever, I mean, you might have dock like this, but you have reeds in between where you're not gonna be skipping, so you're gonna be loosening your brakes, tightening them, loosening them. So that's just one thing for me that I really have found with my extended uses of this reel, is that I don't have to adjust those brakes. All right, so some limitations for this reel, I would say would be your long distance casting. It's not a bad long distance casting reel, but I would go with the Daiwa Gekko or like the Shimano Aldebaran or something like that. Ooh, of course, hit that. I'd do something like that over the SS AIR TW. But if you're gonna be doing a lot of, you know, and I'm not saying you have to be in like super heavy cover by any means to use this reel, but if you're gonna be doing any sort of short range of work, even if it's open water, this reel has been proved to me to be, oh, that was bad skip, but it's proved to me to be a very, very capable reel. It's actually been one of my favorite reels to use. I've been, even areas that I should probably be using a flipping rod, I'll still putting this combo in there, and I really don't want to say it, but I haven't snapped off once, even from a pike or anything like that. I mean, I've retied, of course, because of abrasion and such, but I've been definitely putting this setup in areas that I probably shouldn't be putting it. Oh, a little pike. He nipped a couple times. What is that? Not so little pike. Yeah, it's just kind of a byproduct of, ooh, there's a big pike that hit the top of it. It's kind of a byproduct of fishing up north like that, is you get a lot of pike, especially the smaller ones. They like to hide out in the shallows, but yeah, overall, as you saw, that the reel's quite versatile. It can fish, I mean, when it comes to mid to the short range, I really do like it. It's definitely one of my favorite BFS reels for that type of fishing. Now, the limitations, like I said, was just long range casting, which that's not what it's for. What Daiwa's does is they make more technique specific reels. So like the Silver Creek, okay, for that short range, that low spool speed stream fishing. The Gekko being for a little bit further long range casting. And then this reel is that short to mid range casting, right? So that's where this reel is designed for. It does it very, very well. And it does do stream fishing pretty good, which you'll see in a future video. But if you have any other questions about this reel before that article publishes, just comment down below. I'll give you, whatever information I can. Of course, my complete thoughts is going to be in the review, where I have more time to reflect and collect my thoughts, and not just in the act of things. So be sure to be on the lookout for that as well. And thanks for watching.